On the evening of April 1st, 2020, two men approached a flat above a Tesco store on University Road in South Belfast, while a third man keeps his distance, watching intently. Upon opening the front door, the flat's occupant unknowingly reveals himself to the observer. 3 days later, under the midday sun, the occupant's life is cut short in a hail of bullets outside a house on Etna Drive, Ardoyne, in North Belfast. The gunman struck swiftly and methodically, leaving him no chance to escape. As soon as the man entered the hallway of the house, his attacker burst in through the back. He tried to flee and bolted for the front door, but as bullets relentlessly pierced his skull, he slumped to the ground beside a garden gate, fatally injured. It turned out that the man who got shot was 36-year-old Dublin criminal Robbie LAWLOR. Until this day, the murder continues to be the subject of a major police inquiry, with the circumstances surrounding the assassination highlighting an extraordinary merging of North and South criminals, reshaping the face of Ireland's gangland. In this video, we'll delve into the full story of the rise and brutal fall of one of Ireland's most notorious crime bosses. Everybody in Ireland knows the name Robbie LAWLOR, but who was he, and how did he become one of the most feared criminals in the country? Born in 1986, LAWLOR grew up in Darndale, a stark and desolate place during the 80s, especially amidst the turmoil of the Irish hunger strike. The north side of Dublin, where he was raised, was marred by poverty and high unemployment. As a teenager, he got involved in petty crime and dropped out of school at 16. Desperate for money, he turned to selling drugs, rapidly ascending through the ranks of Dublin's criminal underworld. His ruthless ambition and cunning quickly made him a formidable figure in the city's dark underbelly. Originally from Dublin but seeking refuge in County Meath, Robbie LAWLOR quickly became a notorious figure in the perilous world of organised crime, especially amid the violent Drogheda Feud. With over 100 convictions, he was a constant blip on the police radar, earning countless enemies with his ruthless and violent nature. Known for his brutality, LAWLOR was involved in numerous violent crimes, including armed robberies. His criminal reach extended beyond Ireland, with ties to drug trafficking operations in the UK and Spain. Though implicated in several high-profile murders in Ireland, he evaded conviction for these crimes, further enhancing his notorious reputation. LAWLOR's infamy grew as he became one of Ireland's most wanted men. Despite being arrested multiple times, he skillfully avoided lengthy prison sentences. His ability to elude justice only solidified his fearsome legend in the criminal underworld. In 2005, Robbie LAWLOR was believed to be connected to his first documented murder, that of drug dealer Mark Byrne. The two had clashed while incarcerated in Mountjoy prison. Shortly after Byrne's temporary release, he was gunned down on a busy street, a brazen act that marked the beginning of LAWLOR's reputation for brutal vengeance. Although arrested for the murder, LAWLOR was never charged due to insufficient evidence. 3 years later, LAWLOR was arrested again, this time for a shocking gun attack on a man minding a baby while sitting in a friend's car. A gunman approached the vehicle and fired 5 shots through the driver's side window, leaving the man in critical condition and injuring the baby. LAWLOR, suspected to be the gunman, appeared to be driven by a personal vendetta, possibly with racist elements involved. Yet again he managed to evade charges, slipping through the cracks of the justice system. Then, in 2009, another notorious gangland figure, David Fred Lynch, was found gunned down in North Dublin. On his 26th birthday, his lifeless body was discovered in a field by a passerby walking his dog. Law enforcement believed Robbie LAWLOR, then only 24, had targeted Lynch after a personal dispute. Lynch, known as an associate of leaders from a rival faction, had received numerous threats before his death. It is believed that Lynch was lured to the field after receiving a phone call asking him to meet. The violence didn't stop there. Just a year later, LAWLOR was implicated in the killing of small-time criminal Noel Deans, who owed substantial amounts of money for cannabis. Although no one was charged, authorities suspected LAWLOR was paid to execute the hit. In a chilling display of cold-heartedness, LAWLOR reportedly drank tea with Dean's heartbroken mother just hours after killing her son, showcasing his ruthless nature. Following this heinous act, LAWLOR fled the country and embarked on a trip around the world, evading justice once more. A couple of years later in 2017, the notorious Drogheda Feud erupted, when a drug gang led by Owen Maguire splintered into 2 factions after 2 ambitious young members decided to strike out on their own. This new anti-Maguire faction received support from LAWLOR's brother-in-law, seasoned criminal Richard Carberry. Despite growing up with prominent gangland figures like Mr. Big, LAWLOR was aligned with the rival faction against Maguire. However, he was more of a lone wolf, operating as a freelance hitman in his final years. Lawler's list of enemies was extensive. He became a target not only for Maguire, but also for Mr. Big, with whom he had a bit of falling out over money, turning them into sworn adversaries. In February 2018, Lawler emerged as the prime suspect in the murder of Kenneth Finn, Mr. Big's right-hand man, further entrenching himself in the violent underworld. Around that time, the Drogheda Feud escalated into a wave of violence, including stabbings and car bombings. In July 2018, it's believed Lawler personally pulled the trigger on his rival, mob boss Owen Maguire, shooting him multiple times and leaving him paralysed. Just an hour after the attempted murder of Maguire, Lawler was stopped by the Gardaí in North Louth for speeding with a flat tyre. He was found stripped to his underwear and doused in petrol, presumably to eliminate any traces of gun residue or DNA. This bizarre and desperate act highlighted the lengths Lawler would go to evade capture and maintain his ruthless grip on the underworld. Meanwhile, Robbie Lawler's personal life was in turmoil. After returning from his trip in 2017, he discovered the mother of his 2 children had started a new relationship. Furious, Lawler embarked on a campaign of threats and intimidation, which culminated in the assault of his ex-girlfriend and the attempted murder of her new mother-in-law in May 2018. This led to his arrest and imprisonment. While Lawler was behind bars, his brother-in-law Richard Carberry was shot in a retaliatory hit in November 2019, just days before he was set to move to the UK. Carberry's wife and daughter tried to assist him until paramedics arrived, but he succumbed to his injuries at the scene. Lawler's time in prison had been far from peaceful. Not only did he lose his brother-in-law, he also crossed paths with one of his arch-rivals, Cornelius Price, who aligned with Maguire. In December 2019, Robbie Lawler was unexpectedly released from prison as all charges, including assault and attempted murder, were dropped. Fueled by a thirst for revenge for his brother-in-law Carberry's murder and aware that there was a bounty on his own head, Lawler re-entered the violent fray with a vengeance. The situation intensified further when rival gang boss Cornelius Price, who died in 2023, was also freed from prison a few months later. Upon his release, Lawler received a stark warning from the Gardaí. His life was in grave danger. However, warnings could not shield him from the numerous enemies he had made. Deeply entangled in the Drogheda Feud, Lawler's return only served to inflame the already volatile conflict. With his life under threat from major figures in Drogheda and fears of a looming war with Coolock mobster Mr. Big, Lawler's release put the Gardaí on high alert. Secret recordings from his time in prison revealed that Lawler believed that Mr. Big was behind Carberry's shooting. By the time Lawler was released, Mr. Big and Cornelius Price had joined forces. Lawler was clearly losing control, and most critically, respect, which likely fueled his paranoia. Despite the serious threats against his life from key players in the Drogheda Feud, Lawler was determined to seek revenge for Carberry's murder, blaming Price for the killing. Days after his release, Lawler faced an incident as he left the gym. He was mugged by younger associates of a rival gang, including 17-year-old Mulready-Woods. They snatched his gym bag and stole his flip-flops, later taunting Lawler by posting pictures and a TikTok video wearing them. The video creator is believed to be an associate of David Fred Lynch, the man Lawler allegedly gunned down in 2009. In January 2020, Lawler took the feud to new heights with the brutal murder of one of the teenagers involved in that gym bag incident, Mulready-Woods. Mulready-Woods was lured to a house where he was killed and dismembered. His remains were discovered at different locations on various dates, along with the flip-flops stolen from Lawler, serving as a grim message to his enemies. It is believed that Lawler and his gang took King to a house in Rathmullen and tortured him. Mulready-Woods' murder, one of the most shocking cases in Irish history, changed everything, and the fallout was immense. The youngster was believed to be a member of the rival gang led by figures like Cornelius Price. He was also the godson of Owen Maguire, who had been left paralysed from the waist down after being shot 6 times by Lawler in 2018. Lawler held both Price and Maguire responsible for the murder of his brother-in-law, Richard Carberry. Additionally, Lawler knew that Price was fond of Mulready-Woods. Lawler allegedly planned to deliver some of the teenagers' remains on Price's doorstep, but the deliverers got spooked by Gardaí. Eventually, remains were dropped near the home of Mr. Big. The killing is regarded as a message to the rival Maguire faction, to make sure they would know Robbie Lawler shouldn't be messed with. The killing of Keane infuriated Price and his allies due to its brutality. Upon his release from jail in February 2020, amidst the height of the Drogheda Feud, Price escaped to the UK, but vowed to exact revenge on Lawler and eliminate him. Throughout 2020, the threats against Lawler escalated significantly. In search of safety, he fled to Northern Ireland, unaware that this decision would ultimately lead to his tragic death. Taking shelter above a Tesco store on University Road in South Belfast, Lawler's final refuge turned into a fatal ambush. In April, the inevitable happened. 36-year-old Lawler was fatally shot in broad daylight in North Belfast. Allegedly, Lawler had gone to the house on Etna Drive expecting to collect money. Upon entering the front door, a gunman entered through the back, shooting Lawler in the front yard. Days prior to the murder, on the evening of April 1st, 3 members of the infamous McCarthy-Dundon gang visited Lawler's apartment. Jared Dundon and Quincy Bramble approached Lawler's flat and lured him to the door, while John Dundon's 17-year-old son Levi Killeen remained discreetly out of sight. Killeen observed Lawler as he unsuspectingly answered the door. Later accounts suggested this setup was to ensure Lawler was identifiable to the assailant, possibly Killeen himself. This theory was supported by the belief the trio was part of a hit team, though the PSNI reported finding no evidence linking them to Lawler's death through CCTV checks. Following the shooting, the trio was apprehended in a vehicle near the murder site, but later released without charges, as the PSNI claimed they didn't find any evidence linking them to the actual killing. The release caused significant controversy because Irish investigators strongly suspected the Dundon group to be involved in the assassination. As far as the suspicion of the Dundons go, it wasn't just that trio that had gained the attention of authorities. Although they were freed after being questioned, Gardaí had also witnessed a handover of cash to McCarthy-Dundon gang members from Limerick shortly after Lawler was murdered. Gardaí believed this €50,000 transaction was payment for their role in luring Lawler to the scene. According to reports, Lawler was under the protection of the Dundons during his time in prison. He supposedly paid them for security against his rival Cornelius Price, and they reportedly offered to continue protecting him after his release. However, the witnessed payment indicates an alleged betrayal, suggesting they double-crossed Lawler in an epic way. The connection between the Dundons and Cornelius Price appears strong. They were later arrested in the UK for an extortion scheme that led to Jared Dundon receiving a 15-year prison sentence. Other details surrounding Lawler's death remain obscure. His killing has been characterised as a gangland-style execution, and there are more individuals who may well be connected to Lawler's murder. As investigations progressed, another suspect was apprehended and interrogated. Warren Crossan, a known drug dealer, was suspected of providing the getaway vehicle used after the assassination. Crossan was the son of Tommy Crossan, a dissident Republican leader who was previously murdered. Approximately 2 months after Lawler's killing, Warren Crossan himself was fatally shot at his mother's house in Crumlin. It's speculated that this was a retaliatory strike linked to Lawler's death. Interestingly, Crossan's name surfaced in connection with the earlier mentioned extortion scheme that led to the arrests of Dundon and Price in the UK. Orchestrated by Jared Dundon, the motive allegedly revolved around money owed to Warren Crossan. The twist in this grim narrative, however, is that Crossan had already been killed before the extortion occurred, complicating the investigation with its intricate connections. Later, 2 more individuals came into focus in Lawler's case. In December 2020, Patrick Tier from Belfast and Adrian Holland from Derry were charged in connection with the murder, based on vehicle plate recognition and cell site analysis. While neither is suspected of being the actual shooters, they're accused of involvement in a joint enterprise with others. Holland owned the house on Etna Drive where the murder occurred, and Tier allegedly met with Sligo-based gangster Barry Young in a hotel just weeks before the killing. Barry Young is a notorious drug trafficker, currently serving an 11-year sentence for drug dealing. Over a criminal career spanning 2 decades, he emerged as one of the country's leading drug suppliers, eventually taking control of a gang in the west of Ireland. He played a pivotal role in the drug trade across Northern Ireland, suspected of supplying cocaine and cannabis to various gangs in Belfast and border areas. According to police, it was during that hotel meeting with Young that Lawler's execution was commissioned on behalf of a major gangland alliance of Mr. Big, Owen Maguire, and Cornelius Price, and orchestrated through intricate prison connections. In May 2024, the arrest of an associate of Barry Young in Liverpool marked a significant breakthrough in the investigation into Lawler's murder. Authorities described the arrest as extremely significant, suspecting the individual from Sligo of playing a crucial role in the homicide. More recently, a 39-year-old man named James Fields has been charged with aiding the offenders in connection with Lawler's killing. He stands accused of knowing about the perpetrators and hindering their capture by assisting them in leaving the area. By now it's clear that Lawler was shot dead in a complex plot involving a range of criminal gangs. At the time of his murder, Lawler had become one of the most erratic criminals operating in Ireland's underworld and was the chief suspect in a number of gangland murders. Gardaí believed that Cornelius Price paid over €100,000 for Lawler's assassination in retaliation for the Mulready-Woods murder. According to Garda sources, on Lawler's first day out of jail, he went to Price's family compound in Gormanston, County Meath, armed with a gun to seek revenge. However, he fled when he was spotted by plainclothes detectives in an unmarked patrol car passing by. Subsequently, Lawler targeted the teenager in January 2020 who had mocked him at a gym in Coolock shortly after his release. Gardaí state that Lawler orchestrated the abduction with associates from another local gang involved in the Drogheda drugs feud, namely Paul Crosby and Gerard Cruz. Both Crosby and Cruz are currently incarcerated after pleading guilty to aiding in Mulready-Woods' murder. Witness statements indicate that Lawler stabbed Mulready-Woods in the neck and watched him die. He then ordered others in the house in Rathmullen Park, Drogheda, to dismember the body. The gruesome murder sparked outrage nationwide and within the criminal underworld. Lawler paid the price for this horrific act when he was murdered several weeks later. Initially, it was believed that it had been Price's cunning plan to set Lawler up with a rival group by feigning a hit job in Belfast. The intended target remained safely hidden while the assassin waited for Lawler to walk into his own execution. This elaborate scheme led to Price celebrating the rival's demise in a chilling selfie video. However, it's the killing of Mr. Big's right-hand man, Kenneth Finn, in Coolock back in 2018 that is currently being treated as the primary motive for Lawler's murder. Arrests, cash seizures, and other activities related to the Dundon McCarthy gang following the fatal shooting are now seen as a smokescreen devised by Mr. Big to conceal his involvement in Lawler's murder. According to sources, Mr. Big is considered Ireland's most cunning criminal. Sligo gang boss Barry Young is also believed by Gardaí to have forged close links to Mr. Big. Robbie Lawler's life was steeped in crime and violence. As a controversial and polarising figure, he was respected but mostly feared in Ireland's underworld. His death concluded a turbulent and violent career, leaving behind a legacy of crime and chaos that still haunts Ireland. As investigations continue, his shadow looms large over the country. Although the mystery of his murder persists, one thing is clear: Robbie Lawler's reign of terror has ended, but his legacy will continue to haunt Ireland for years to come. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.